One of our goals this week is to revise our Hamlet essays and in the process learn a little bit more about the AP rubric and how to achieve the upper levels of point value on those essays. Today we're going to look at the concept of a line of reasoning, which you can see shows up in the thesis where it says it may provide a line of reasoning. And then down here in row B, evidence and commentary, in order to get in this upper point category, you have to have support for all claims in a line of reasoning. So we need to find out more about what exactly is a line of reasoning and how can we make one happen. So, come on, presentation. There we go. So first of all, the line of reasoning Line of reasoning simply means that you have a set of claims that you are using in order to reach a conclusion. It moves forward in a logical progression, and you are laying it out logically to demonstrate your argument. So this is just a methodical progress of arguing a claim, and it all has to be in order for the reader to stay with you. If that line of reasoning jumps the track in this first of several visual metaphors, then you might lose your reader and not get that line of reasoning point. So a strong line of reasoning starts with a strong thesis. Each point builds on the next point and connects back to the thesis in three main ways. It connects to the thesis, to the theme, and to the prompt. And then the conclusion brings all the points together strongly. You can think of it kind of like a house of cards. If you don't have strong evidence to support your reasons, then you are not going to be able to build on your main claim in order to support that all the way through. So we can try setting a claim on top of a weak house of cards, but it's all going to come tumbling down, if that makes sense. So you need to have each piece there to strongly build upon the next in order to fully support your central idea. Evidence is one important part of this. Commentary is important to build and argue your line of reasoning, but if you do not have multiple examples of evidence in each paragraph, then you're not going to build a very strong argument. After all, would you trust a detective who solved a case with only one clue? No, you have to have a lot of evidence to build each point. Organizing your line of reasoning is also important. You can have many good ideas, but if they are not organized in a way that helps the writer follow your argument, then you're not going to have a very strong paper at all. So you can organize this evidence sequentially, meaning in the order that it occurs in the passage or in the novel, or you can cluster your evidence thematically rather than chronologically. I think thematically is generally stronger, but you can also write a very strong sequential paper, especially if you're trying to show change over time in a character. And these are things you need to consider in pre-writing. You need to know before you put your pencil on paper how you are going to attack this argument. So start with your weakest point and build to your strongest. This is something that I see a lot of students fail at. You jump right into your strongest point, and so the essay starts off, bam, like it's going to be a winner, and then it just gets weaker and weaker and weaker as the paper goes on. But if you have pre-written enough to recognize which one of your points is probably the weakest, start with that one and build toward your strongest, because then the reader keeps thinking, oh, this essay just keeps getting better and better, instead of, oh man, it all kind of fell apart by the end. Start weak. Lead with your weak one. And if you're moving chronologically, transitions are clear, are strong, need to be strong in order to make that transition clear. All right. So sometimes it's obvious what sequence you need to do things. For example, if you're going to make a bowl of cereal. Now, I know the internet likes to argue about whether you put in the milk first or the cereal first, but we all know what normal people do. Some sequences, not so much. If you've ever read the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, at first, it starts off kind of logical. He might want a glass of milk, and then he's going to need a straw to go in it, and he might need a nap. But then how do we get to a mirror and scissors and Scotch tape and a pen? This does not make sense, except that the writer clearly explains a logical connection. That is what your commentary is for, is to argue so clearly why each of your steps builds upon the next, that the reader is persuaded to see it your way. So I've given you a lot of visual metaphors here for a line of reasoning. You might think of it as a house of cards that has to be built strong enough to hold up your central claim. You might think of it as categorized and organized rows of colorful candy. You might think of it as line dancing, where each step logically follows the next. And if you miss a step, or if you don't do it in the correct pattern, then you're going to get all out of line and all the dancers are going to all fall down. My favorite here is the taco, where you can see each clear individual piece of a taco, but when they're all put together and held together with this clear shell of reasoning, then it all makes one delicious snack. All right, so now that you kind of understand what line of reasoning is, we're going to look at it visually. And so we're going to be creating something kind of like this. We're going to, it's arts and crafts time, kids. We are going to cut our essay into pieces and start labeling it. But I'm getting ahead of ourselves. Distance learners, we are going to be actually doing this with scissors and glue in the classroom. You are welcome to do that too. I unfortunately cannot send you the materials to do that, but if you have them at home, feel free to go old school with scissors and glue and highlighters. Or you can use Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Highlighting, underlining, all that stuff is fully digitally capable. You can hit enter to add extra lines like you are cutting them apart. And then you can use the comment or note functions to label and write along the sides when we get to that part. Step 1, to deconstruct your line of reasoning and figure out where it is, and if you have a good one, you are going to read through your paper and underline or highlight these parts in different colors. You need to find your thesis statement. I actually have already highlighted that for you because I did that while I was grading these Hamlet essays. If I was wrong and that's not what you intended your thesis to be, then you can correct that, of course. The evidence and commentary need to be 2 different colors. Then you need to mark either by underlining or putting in brackets your opening and closing sentences of each paragraph. Then you're going to cut your paper in. At this point, by going through 1 and 2, you should have reread your whole paper at this point because you've labeled everything. It's all kinds of color-coded now. Almost no thing will be left uncolor-coded. Then you're going to cut your paper into sections by paragraph. The only paragraph that gets cut into 2 pieces is the introduction because your thesis needs to stand apart from all the other material. Then you are going to glue those pieces onto construction paper and leave room for marking and labeling, like this. Once you have it all glued on there, you are going to trace your line of reasoning. We are looking for these 3 different connections. So as you read back through your paper again, put a little star or a note or that says thesis, theme, or prompt. Maybe come up with a little symbol that means each one of them. So you can see in paragraph 1, where do you refer back to theme? Or do you refer back to the prompt? Where do you refer back to the thesis? Label that in each body paragraph. You should label it in the introduction and the conclusion as well, because that line of reasoning should go throughout the entire paper. Then you are going to connect the dots. You're going to draw a line, whether you want it to be straight or curvy or dotted, etc., between the words thesis, theme, or prompt. And so you'll have a thesis line, a theme line, and a prompt line. If the line breaks, for example, if in paragraph 1 you have theme, but in paragraph 3 you don't, then draw a little X or a little uh-oh face, or something to indicate that the line breaks there and restarts down here. That X is going to be important to your revision plan. Then look at each opening and closing sentence. Do they connect to each other? So if your closing of line 1 and your start sentence of line 2 connect well, draw a little line between them. If they don't, put an uh-oh face. Read the conclusion carefully. You should be able to find thesis, theme, and prompt again in the conclusion. At least 2 of those should occur in the conclusion. If they are missing, put an X. Then we're going to step back and see where all the little X's and or uh-oh faces are and look for how we can fix it. So then you're going to start adding material in the margins. You're going to go back through and say, okay, this is where I need to add a sentence or revise a sentence to connect these broken lines in order to make a stronger line of reasoning that flows throughout my paper. And I know this might seem a little elementary, cutting it up into pieces, but I think this visual indicator is going to be a strong way for you to see what needs to be added to your paper. We're going to go through a couple of revision stages with this. So line of reasoning is just the first one. Finally, it is time for revision, and this is your homework, and it is laid out for you on Kitum. It is due on Friday. You need to retype your paper to include the line of reasoning that you strengthened. So you need to strengthen your thesis, rearrange paragraphs. If you didn't finish the essay, you can finish it. One thing you do not need to do is add quotes from the play. This is a timed essay, and you will not, for these novel length, play length prompts, ever have a prompt in front of you or a piece in front of you where you could draw quotes from. You're not supposed to use quotes in question 3. So if I had a couple of at-home learners who used their book or something in order to get quotes, don't do that. Take them out. Consider the balance between your evidence and commentary. That's something else you should be able to see here from all the highlighting is what your balance is between evidence and commentary. Do you have enough of both? There should be more commentary than evidence, but still enough evidence to support it. Write a new, stronger conclusion. Really, really focus on addressing thesis, theme, and prompt in the conclusion. You can begin to make some small changes if it irritates you, but you've got to focus on these big idea changes. And then you need to bring your revised paper to class on Friday, printed. We are hopefully going to have time to do peer review on Friday. And DLs, you will need to show up for the live lesson in order to do a peer review. So please try to make sure that you do that.